Number 8. William Wallace. There's few greater joys in life than experiencing Christmas as a child. That time of year holds a special place in the hearts of many. The season focuses on spending quality time with loved ones and family, but one California man forgot the true meaning of Christmas in 2011. 39-year-old William Wallace made a living working at a dock in Anaheim. He had a wife named Zazel Preston, and together they looked after 3 young children. Right after the couple had a Christmas Eve party, William and Zazel got into some kind of argument. It's unknown what it was over, but it is known that Wallace had previously spent some time in jail for abusing his lover. At some point during the fight, William forcefully pushed 26-year-old Preston into a glass table. It's unclear if this was the cause of death or if it was the harsh beating Wallace subjected her to. The couple's oldest daughter was then called into the room to help clean her mother up. She told the court how she took pieces of broken glass out of her mother's cold body before William carried Preston to their bedroom. He then left her there overnight. The next holiday morning, he made the effort to drag her lifeless body into the family's living room. He propped his dead wife's body on the couch, posed her, and put some sunglasses over the stiff eyes. It didn't take long for the excited children to run into the room, ready to open presents. While the kids saw their mom and seemed apprehensive, William apparently told them, "Mommy ruined Christmas. She got drunk and ruined Christmas." The saddest part of the story is that Zazel Preston was going to school, studying to be a counselor and advocate for domestic violence victims. For what he did to her, William Wallace was sentenced to serve 15 years to life. This conviction came in the summer of 2021, 10 years after the murder. Wallace will get credit for the years he spent in jail, awaiting a formal sentence. Number 7. Squirrel. In 2013, a woman from Charleston, South Carolina wasn't in the Christmas spirit on December 25th when she and her husband got into a fight over alcohol. 44-year-old Helen Williams apparently stabbed her spouse with a small squirrel statue. Authorities were called to the scene after the husband frantically went to the neighbor's house to ask for help. Police immediately noticed the bloodstains all over the 41-year-old's clothes and body. He even had a deep, painful wound in his chest area. Their first stop in finding out what happened was to question the wife, but she wasn't much help. Helen simply told the officers that her husband simply fell. The literal blood on her hands told a different story though. Eventually, the truth came out. The night before, on Christmas Eve, the husband had gone out to the store to buy some beer for the festivities. Sadly, the store had already closed for the night, so he returned home empty-handed. Helen was furious when her man came back with nothing to show for himself, causing her to lash out. Mrs. Williams was taken to the county jail and held under a $10,000 bond for what she did. Looks like she never got to spike the eggnog that Christmas season. Number 6. Deck the halls. While everyone enjoys seeing pretty lights during the cold season, actually decorating yourself can be a daunting task. Don't get us wrong, it's still a blast, but taking the time to buy all the pieces, then put them up all to form for a perfect holiday scene isn't exactly everyone's cup of tea. But one family from Vandalia, Ohio came one evening to see some of their Christmas decor had been set up without their knowledge. To be more specific, the 11-year-old son of the Henderson family walked into the house in 2011 and immediately noticed a strange man watching TV in their living room. The boy quickly reacted by calling his mother, who was shocked and called the police. The intruder was 44-year-old Terry Trent, who was high off his rocks on bath salts at the time. He was armed with a pocket knife while in the home. Authorities think that he probably got in through the back door before casually settling in. Terry lit some candles, put up decorations, and got comfortable watching TV before the child walked in on him. Thankfully, he wasn't violent at all and even apologized to the boy for scaring him. As soon as he was discovered, he gathered his things up and offered to just leave. The police took Terry into custody and held him inside the Montgomery County Jail. Who knew it was a crime to have Christmas spirit? Would you ever pay someone to decorate your house for the holidays? Tell us in the comments below and hit subscribe while you're at it. Number 5. Christmas Parade. During a Christmas parade in 2021, a madman drove his vehicle through the crowd, killing 6 people in his trail. The incident happened in the once peaceful town of Waukesha, Wisconsin. Over 16 children were injured, 6 were put into critical condition, while others were expected to recover. At least one kid died during the chaos caused by 39-year-old Darrell E. Brooks. On top of the children, dozens more were injured. It's unclear why Mr. Brooks did what he did. Right before the disaster, he was involved in another concerning domestic disturbance crime. Sadly, police were unable to respond to the calls from this incident thanks to the overwhelming influx of 911 reports at the parade. Multiple officers yelled at Daryl, telling him to stop while he rammed his SUV through the crowd. One man in particular distinctly remembers the look the driver had on his face as he stared blankly, straight ahead, devoid of emotion. A few weeks before the parade, Brooks got out of jail for a separate charge involving his vehicle. The man had allegedly ran over his child's mother. She luckily survived, but this concerning behavior should have been a warning sign that Brooks wasn't fit to be out in public. After being taken into custody, he faced 78 charges, 6 of which were first-degree homicide. The judge and jury sentenced him to life behind bars with no chance of parole. In total, Daryl E. Brooks received 762 years in prison. Number 4. LASHAWN CLAYBURN. The Grinch may have stolen Christmas, but 21-year-old LASHAWN CLAYBURN stole 26-year-old Chishon Hillard's life in 2018. LASHAWN and 2 others kidnapped the man on December 24th and took him to an abandoned home. We don't know for sure what happened inside, but it is certain that Chishon was held at gunpoint and killed at some point in the night. The property was set on fire, so the victim's body wasn't discovered until weeks after the murder. This wasn't Mr. Clayburn's first brush with the law either. On January 5 the following year, he carjacked a young woman named Naomi Miller. He shot and killed her while she was getting ready to drive for work. After firing the gun, he proceeded to take the deceased victim's car out for a joyride. For a couple of hours, he and some friends rode around town without a care in the world. The next day, he traded the vehicle for a different car unrelated to the murder. Clayburn took Naomi's license plates off, so it'd be more difficult to trace. For the crime he committed on Christmas and the others, he received 10 years. With a previous conviction of 25 years in prison, his new sentence will run concurrently to the past charges. Number 3. Mall killings. San Diego's Mission Valley Mall's parking lot was the scene of a deadly shooting that claimed the lives of 2 individuals. To make the situation even more tragic, 22-year-old Salvatore Belvedere and 22-year-old Ilona Flint were killed on Christmas Eve 2012. Their bodies were discovered inside their vehicle. Mr. Belvedere was still alive at the time despite being shot in the head. He was later pronounced dead after being taken to the hospital. Miss Flint was slouching over in the front passenger seat with a gunshot wound in the back of her skull. Earlier that day, she was the one who called police, admitting on the line that she'd been injured. When detectives saw the aftermath of the attack, they noticed bullet casings inside the car. This, combined with the fact that no shots were heard on the call, leads them to believe the killer used a silencer on his gun. Their primary suspect was Sal's older brother and Ilona's fiancé, Gianni. Nearly a month after the initial murders, police found Gianni on January 17, 2014. He was sitting inside his vehicle in Riverside, a town about 90 miles from San Diego. Investigators were immediately hit by a putrid smell as they approached. Then they realized their suspect was already dead. His body had cans of air freshener scattered around it with the buttons taped down. Gianni had a bullet wound in his head, similar to his loved one's deaths. Strangely enough, the actual killer was uncovered for a different crime. 29-year-old Carlo Mercado was stopped at the border patrol point with several guns and a homemade silencer. Police were unable to arrest him though, since he illegally owned 2 of the firearms. They were able to take the other weapons from him, but they had to let him go. Months later, enough evidence was collected to finally put Mercado behind bars. Because he had an illegal silencer in his possession, he was forced to have his DNA taken. With this, detectives linked him to DNA found in both murder vehicles. The man's phone history also lined up with him being at the crime scene. Not long after the truth came out, Carlo was found guilty of 3 brutal murders and given 3 life sentences. His motive for the crimes is still foggy, but police believe the killer was simply delusional. Number 2. Jessica Cortez Luna. While visiting some family members on Christmas 2020, 28-year-old Jessica Cortez Luna was murdered. The young Florida woman was a mother to 4 children, and it's highly believed that the person who killed her was Jorge Maya Gomez. Jessica and Jorge had been dating for 5 years with a long history full of domestic violence. At times it was just verbal, but then there were days when it escalated to physical assault. Jessica was shot and killed that night while her young 7-year-old boy watched. Other family members, like the victim's sister, Maria, said that they knew Jorge was capable of unspeakable things. They warned her repeatedly not to go back to him, but every time, their pleas were ignored. Even now, 2 years later, police have been unable to find their primary suspect, which makes it even more likely that Jorge was the killer. The night of Jessica's death, he was seen leaving the crime scene in a Chevy truck. Maria believes that he may have fled to Mexico and will never return. The uncertainty makes her fear the lives of the children and other family members. She said in an interview, "I'm kind of scared for our lives too. We don't know where he could be." Information about this case is limited since the suspect remains on the run. Hopefully, one day, Jorge will answer for his actions and justice will be served. 4 kids were left without a mother during the Christmas season, and they might never get the closure they deserve. Number 1. Alessandro Pontin. In Trebaselega, Italy, during Christmas 2020, 49-year-old Alessandro Pontin's teenage children came to spend the holidays. Pontin and the mother of the kids were separated and often argued over child support and the children's care. While 15-year-old Francesca and 13-year-old Pietro were sleeping, their father suddenly came into the room and attacked them. They woke up terrified in one of the worst situations imaginable. One of the people that was supposed to love them most in the world was trying to kill them. Moving quickly, the teens got out of bed and desperately tried to run away. Their father quickly caught up to them though, and took their lives by slicing their throats. Police were able to get a decent picture of what happened that night based on the trails of blood scattered around the house. After the children were dead, Alessandro took his own life. A suicide note was left at the bloody scene, but the kids were not mentioned a single time in the letter. At the time of the crime, the killer was having difficulty finding jobs in his line of work as a carpenter. To try and make ends meet, Pontin reinvented himself as some kind of holistic health expert. He must not have been making very much money in this new role though, since he couldn't cough up more than 100 euros a month in child support payments. When the children's mother started asking for more help, he probably snapped under the pressure. What's sad about this case is that justice will never be served for Francesca and Pietro's death, since the killer, their father, took the cowardly way out. Thanks for watching. Do you have any lighthearted stories about Christmas? We need a little pick-me-up after today's listings. Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time on Bad Badger.